Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad Hughesby, and today I'm going over some of the storylines you need to know for this 2023 cycle. It's been a pretty wild week. A lot of big reports coming out, some picks being thrown around. Of course, you're watching Chris Vicina's junior huddle tape. Before I talk about the main storylines, and quarterback recruiting is absolutely one of them, I just want to give my take on who I think the quarterback will be in this class. I think there'll be one, and I think it will be Chris Vicina. He's going to be on campus before more first week of March. His parents, I think, want him in South Bend. Clemson, I think, has the lead as of right now. But academics also play a huge part in this, and Vicina has a great relationship with Reese, as a lot of people know. Freeman's getting really involved here. I just think there's a lot going Notre Dame's way, externally as well as internally for Vicina. And right now, I think that's Notre Dame's quarterback. Now, to say more is not ending up in this class would be a far assumption to make, a far-fetched assumption to make. More, I think, is trending Notre Dame as of right now. I just don't think his timeline matches up with Notre Dame's. Angeli committed at the beginning of March of last year, and that's, I think, where Notre Dame wants to be. Pine and Buckner committed very early, but COVID was more of a factor then. When Angeli was committed, it was a year into COVID. People understood everything more. And Pine committed before COVID even started. But Vicina has been to both campuses. I think once he goes to Notre Dame again, I think he'll commit to the staff. Now, we'll see what happens, but for anyone saying more, we should wait on more, we shouldn't be taking Vicina at this stage of the process, that's absolutely incorrect. Vicina is a top 65 prospect in the country. 6'3", 6'4", 200-plus pounds, has an arm like this, plays in Alabama. If you're going to beat Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson, you need a guy like this. And Vicina, in my opinion, is better than Buckner was. Of course, Buckner's junior highlight tape was absolutely incredible, and then his arm mechanics, we're not going to get into that. But Vicina, when I watched this junior film, I liked it more than I liked Moore's, to be completely honest. Now, that might just be me, but both phenomenal prospects. I think both of them are five-star guys. So we'll see what happens, but I just want to get my point across. Let's head into the biggest storyline, though, and I think that's wide receiver recruiting. Of course, one wide receiver in a class that needed 3, if not 4, is just not acceptable. That's why Del Alexander lost his job, and that's why it's the main storyline to follow this year. You have Carnell Tate as probably your top overall target on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. There's none bigger than him, even though, as I've been saying, I don't think he ends up in the blue and gold. We'll see what happens, but I just think I'm taking everyone else at this point. Definitely not over, though. Still loves Tommy Reese, Marcus Freeman, yada, yada. But you have Braylon James emerging. He'll be on campus for a pretty loaded March 18th recruiting weekend. You have Jaden Greathouse, who might be coming on campus for a visit. You have Ronnie Gallagher, who's hoping to get on campus. Just a very, very important cycle. You need to land guys every single class. You saw what happened with that 2020 offensive line class. You only landed Baker and Carmody. They took 5 guys in back-to-back classes. They're not afraid to do that. And so I expect 4, if not 5 wide receivers in this class. I could see, if I had to pick right now, a little mock projection, give me Braylon James, give me Gallagher, give me Hannafin, and then give me a guy like Elsie. I'd probably go with those 4. Hannafin and Elsie, I think, are targets, maybe not the tip of the top guys, but Braylon James and Ronnie Gallagher are absolutely top of the board. You're doing everything you can to land those guys' targets. So that's my spiel on wide receiver recruiting. Definitely a storyline to follow there. Next, defensive line. Mike Elston leaves. He's been in that role for about 10, 11 years. Who picks up? How does Al Washington do? He's going to do great. You already have Keeley committed. You need to keep Keeley committed. That will be a big storyline to follow. Vernon seems locked in, which is always a good thing, even though I never really thought he'd waver in his pledge. You have guys like Devin Houston, who's on the top of the board, and Pemba might be playing defensive line, not really sure. Jason Moore is really high up on there. So those are the main names to know at defensive line. And that's going to be a big storyline. Can Al Washington come in and do what Elston's been doing, if not better? Because Keeley right now is one of the top 10 commits in Notre Dame history. His ranking will flow and whatnot, as it always does. But I think he'll stay a 5-star, and that would be a massive pickup for the Irish. Next, we will head to the defensive backfield. Of course, corners and safeties coaches, both Mike Mickens and Chris O'Leary, stayed in their respective roles, which is huge, huge news for the Irish. The coaches you want stay, they do stay, and you get some high-flying coaches in from other programs. So Notre Dame's coaching staff is elite, as I mentioned in my video last night on that. Make sure you check that out if you haven't yet. But what can they do? They have Justin Rett committed, Peyton Bowen and Don Schuler, 3 top 150 players. Guys Notre Dame has not been landing other than Kyle Hamilton and Houston Griffith these past few years. So what will they do? Well, they're looking good on guys like Christian Gray. Ryan Yates is a guy that I don't know if he's a take right now, but he's a top 150 player in the country. And he's on a take. So this is pretty wild stuff. They're also high on Caleb Downs' board, Jair Hill from Illinois. There are a lot of names here, guys. I should probably do a video on that, but names will emerge as well from the 7-on-7 camps and testing and whatever, getting guys on campus, seeing them in person. That's a really, really big deal. So that's what I have to say there. And then tight end, you're feeling good about. Running back, I think you're feeling good about. Offensive line, Harry Heinstead returns, one of the more better offensive line coaches of all time, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. I don't know why I need to stutter about that. Harry Heinstead is probably the best or one of the best offensive line coaches of all time in college football. Didn't have the greatest year or two with the Bears. The NFL is a different monster. You guys don't. It's hard to understand that. People don't understand that. College coaches. I feel like Freeman's. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up in the pros one day if he does well. He's never coached a game as a head coach yet. But he just seems like the type of guy who will stay in college. Didn't work out for Nick Saban. A lot of these position coaches, too, it just doesn't work out. But Heinstead, boy, he was probably the best position coach these past few years out of anyone in the country. McGlinchey, Nelson, Stanley, just so many big-time NFL players. Zach Martin was there for a little bit, I think. So just some phenomenal players have came out of his room, and Harry Heinstead returning is huge. For recruiting, too, guys like Sullivan Absher, Charles Jagish, Chase Besantis, they love Heinstead, and I think he can land these guys. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe.